2015 winners of the CPCAB Counselling Research Award were a team from Newman University. The winning research, titled An Exploration of Black and Asian Counsellors' Experiences of Working with White Clients, was conducted by Beverley Spalding and supervised by Jan and Alison Rolfe. Counsellor and psychotherapist Barry Kopp met Beverley and Jan to talk to them about the research and its findings.
So, welcome. We're here at Newman University today for the CPCAB Research Award, which is in collaboration with BACP, to talk to Beverley and Jan about the research on an exploration of black counsellors' experience of working with white clients. Welcome, Beverley. I understand your colleague Alison is unavailable today, and to Jan, who supervised your research. So it might be interesting to start on what motivated you to do the research that you did.
Yeah, I think basically what had happened, I was working at an agency and as a counsellor, and I had a new client come in one Saturday that I was there, and as I usually do, I went out to greet my client, to take her in, and she sort of stood back and said to me, "Oh, you know, the agency didn't tell me that you were black." And I just sort of stood there. I was quite taken aback by what she'd said. And then she said it again. She said, "The agency didn't tell me you were black." And then I said to her, "Well, you know, is it going to be a problem?" And then she just kept saying, "I didn't know that you were black." And then I said to her, "Well, I can arrange then for somebody else to see you." I said, "It's not a problem." And she said to me, "Well, the reason why she's saying this is because she had an experience with a black man and a traumatic experience, and she felt like she couldn't work with me." And then in the end she said to me, "Oh, we'll just carry on anyway." She says, "It doesn't matter, we'll carry on anyway." And I said to her, "Well, you know, are you sure?" And she says, "Yeah, we'll carry on anyway." So we went in and we had the session, but obviously she wasn't comfortable and I didn't feel comfortable because I was just taken aback with everything, and as a result of that I didn't see her again after that. And it just made me think then, you know, because it was the first time really that I'd ever thought about, you know, me being black as a counsellor. You know, I'd never thought about it before, and it just made me wonder really whether other black or even Asian counsellors have been through a similar experience to me, because like I said, it was something I'd never thought about prior to this. So yeah, that sort of, I mean, I did my BA course and we had to do a dissertation obviously at the end, and we had to think of something that we could do for our research, and straight away that just came to mind. I thought, well, yeah, I'd love to find out if other counsellors have been through, you know, a similar experience. So yeah, that was it really.
So there's something about having experience and you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Expecting that reaction from a white client to you being a black therapist. And has that led to you looking at how other black Asian counsellors have experienced white clients who have been surprised?
Yeah, and yeah, if they've had that experience with a white client, and also how they've dealt with it. Because it was, like I said, it's something I've never thought about prior to that. And I just wondered, because it had brought that to the forefront for me, I just wondered if it's something that other black or Asian counsellors have thought about, and if it's something that they've experienced as well.
So something about not being prepared to how to respond to that.
Yeah.
And then not even having thought about that even being an issue, or how I would work with that if that came up.
Yeah, definitely.
So that led to you contacting other black Asian therapists as part of the research. If you could talk us through that.
Yeah, what I did, I devised a poster to try and recruit black and Asian therapists for my research, which I sort of displayed within the agency where I work. I also did some posters out here at the university to students who were studying the degree course at the time, and also the foundation degree. And I also sent an email through to the Black and Asian Therapist Network.
All right.
They're based in London, and they're a support group for Black and Asian therapists. I sent an email through to them and asked them if they would display my research, and I tried to recruit people that way.
And you managed to get how many respondents?
Okay, it's quite good actually. The original response, I had I think I had about 13 people contact me via email, and it was funny because the emails came in from people. I think I had a lady in South Wales, I had somebody in Liverpool, I had a lot from London, and then I had a few from the Midlands as well. But because I'm based in the Midlands and the time constraints and everything, because I was working full time as well, I just recruited all my participants from the Midlands. So I recruited 8. In fact, I recruited 9, but then one lady wanted me to compensate her, which I couldn't do. So I just had the 8 participants.
I think it's quite unusual to get such a response and across a wide geographical area.
Yeah.
And because before you recruited, we looked at all the literature, and there's very, very little, or almost nothing in this country written about black counsellors and white clients, although a fair amount working with white counsellors and black clients. So it was clearly an area that gained quite a considerable amount of interest from your participant group.
Definitely.
It was excellent.
So it feels something quite unique that it's been looked at maybe the other way round.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not looked at the experience of the counsellor.
Yeah.
It's an Asian counsellor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe in this country, because we've only perhaps just started to get more black and Asian counsellors, which could be, I don't know the reason why it hadn't been looked at, like you say, the other way around, black counsellor with white client. But obviously, the fact that all these people made contact with me, there are a lot of black and Asian counsellors out there working with white clients who are, experiencing various things, which is why, they all made the contact. I think that's really, really important.
It sort of resonated, the question you were asking.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how you then went about getting that information from the participants.
Okay, well, once everything was in place, I sort of set up an interview with them and had a set of questions that I asked all of them. And we taped, it was a semi-structured interview, and we recorded the interview. And like I said, we went through the questions, and I sort of got all my data from that, really.
And I wonder what the findings were.
Okay, there was various findings. I think, the important ones, the ones that were said over and over, a lot of them, were some counsellors felt when they met with white clients for the first time, there was like a shock reaction, which made them think, which made them wonder, is it me or is it my colour? But there was sometimes always like a surprise when they saw them. So quite a few of my counsellors, the counsellors I interviewed said that. Also, counsellors felt on training courses, their race had been overlooked. They felt like they were treated, everybody was just treated the same. There was no consideration given to the fact that they were different, and the diversity element on the course, that wasn't sort of tailor-made. Well, not tailor-made, but wasn't sort of enough for what they needed, really.
And that feels quite surprising, because we spend a lot of time talking about diversity. And you're always saying that actually in the training, we don't notice the diversity in the group, even when it's there.
And in some ways, for that to be said, that's, it's good in some ways that people say they don't notice the diversity, but when you think of something like colour blindness, where people do, it is there, so it should be acknowledged, and it should be mentioned. I think the counsellors felt, a bit isolated in the fact that, their colour, their race wasn't acknowledged on the courses, and there was nothing on the courses to prepare them for going out there and working with white clients.
And that feels important as well, that there's something about it being a shock to you, that you hadn't been something you considered until it happened, and yet there was no preparation for it. in the training.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, some counsellors as well also felt that when working with white clients, they felt that they had to sort of prove themselves, sort of validate that they are good enough, counsellors to be doing the work that they were doing. And I mean, and that was just through going through the counselling process and feeling that they weren't good enough for some clients. And some of them, there was two in particular who had over 20 years experience, but they still felt, with some clients, some white clients, that they had to validate, themselves as counsellors.
I think it's a reflection of a kind of a British society which still, despite the legislation, privileges white people. Because I think it's really interesting, those counsellors who felt very competent in their counselling were subject to that kind of white dominance feeling that somehow they had to justify themselves, and whether that was coming from the clients as a response to the clients, whether it was coming from the counsellors themselves, I think is, again, an area which in training would be really useful to pursue and to reflect on.
Yeah, definitely.
So almost, where is it coming from? Is it coming from the client, or is it coming from the counsellor? Is it something about the counsellor's expectations, or they're going to fill this, or is this actually something that's in the room, and how do we work with that? How do we acknowledge it even in the counselling session? How do we work through it so that we can actually work with the client?
And it's interesting because when I spoke about the counsellors saying there wasn't enough on the course, about diversity on the course to sort of help them, to prepare them for when they go out. I mean, again, we're talking about whether, the feeling that these counsellors had, whether it was coming from them or whether it was coming from the client. Again, in their training, if they were prepared, if they did sort of do, the self-awareness thing, or, examine their identity to see, what things are coming from them, at least then when faced in this situation, that they'd be more prepared, because like you say, we don't know what, they probably don't know what stuff is coming from them. So again, if that was all explored during training, then at least again they would be better equipped to work with this.
And I'm guessing I'm hearing there's something about, is there enough space in the training for me to look at my own identity and who I am? I'm not quite sure where that leads to, but there seems to be something about that that feels missing.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the issue of self-reflection, which obviously is paramount in a therapeutic relationship, comes across some sort of difficult barriers where we're talking about issues of equality. Counsellors generally don't like to be thought of as racist or homophobic or sexist or whatever, and I think it's very difficult to raise those issues without addressing some of the societal things that are going along around, for example, race. And people are worried, white counsellors or trainees are often, sometimes tutors and lecturers are worried about saying something that might offend people or might come across as racist. And there may be other reasons, other blocks that are around that stop both black and white trainees being able to really explore who they are and how that impacts on their therapeutic work. So I think we've really got to overcome that kind of barrier, as well as all the other sort of good diversity training that currently exists in training courses.
There's almost a sense of fear about being able to go there. Can we hold that process of looking at our own identity? And if we can't look at our own identity, how can we possibly look at someone else's identity and where that comes from? And I'm also conscious maybe that some of this is very unconscious process as well, that sometimes we're just so unaware of what's going on for us or where stuff is coming from, and it's not always overt.
But maybe that's kind of what your trainees were saying, that it's a responsibility of a training course to facilitate that development as much as possible, because there's always an ongoing journey of self-development. It's never cracked. But to create environments where those kind of issues can be brought to the fore, and some of that unconscious stuff can be brought to the conscious and looked at and examined and discussed in preparation to working with clients.
Yeah. Because I mean, one of my participants mentioned on the training course that she was on, there was like segregation. There was groups of Black and Asian clients, and then there was groups of white clients, you know, and there was, you know, a visible separation in the group, yet the trainers did nothing about it. They just ignored it, and there was sometimes conflict going on as well, and, you know, nothing was done to address it. So it's almost like there's a fear of, like you say, of I don't know, of going there, you know, of addressing anything around race.
In that example, it sounds like that was very overt. That,
Yeah.
you know, the Black and Asian students have sort of come together, and the white students have come together. And what was that about, and why was that not addressed somehow by the facilitators?
Yeah.
That feels really uncomfortable, actually.
Yeah. So, yeah, I certainly think, you know, especially on training, I think it all starts with the training. And I certainly think that's where things do need to be sort of looked at, you know, for trainees to be able to go out there and, you know, be able to work, you know, to feel that they are aware of what things they might face out there. But if it's not, you know, touched at all, then, you know, they're just going out there and working blindly, really.
So I'm wondering if what you're saying is it's something about having the awareness that this may happen.
Yeah.
And then how am I then prepared to react to that situation?
Yeah.
And what will that response bring up for me as the counsellor?
Yeah. And I think as well, you know, like you say, there's unconscious things going on could be going on for the counsellor, the Black counsellor as well, and to be able to look at yourself and your identity and what things are going on for you, to be able then to go out there and, you know, be competent then to work with a white client. You know, you've dealt with or looked at or try as much as possible at the stuff that's going on with yourself, because you know, because as well that can contribute obviously to whatever is going on within the counselling relationship.
There's always a sense, actually, I'm just thinking when you're saying that there's almost a sense of racism in the way that they are trained, that we're look at the diversity of what it's like for a white person to work with a black client. We don't look at what it's like for a black counsellor to work with a white client, as though, oh, well, we don't need to worry about that somehow, that's not considered, but the other way round is considered.
And that's it. And I think what you said to me not long ago, that it's as if the training institutions are training black counsellors to work as white counsellors, because we're not actually looking at what it is that goes on, you know, for a black counsellor to go out there and work with a white client. Yet, you know, they're training black counsellors to work as white counsellors.
Yes, that sort of assimilation process, and that's reflected in the texts that are available for training counsellors, as well as in the level of research that's done. And I think your research is not absolutely unique, but you know, there's very, very little around to support training. And I think just listening to you talk about, you know, that process of self-reflection, and of course it being an ongoing process, there's something about the level of supervision which wasn't touched on in your research, but I think looking at the whole gamut of training and so on is something else where issues like that need to be discussed. I think Colin Lago talks with his sort of triangles of supervisor, client and therapist, does address that, but I think that's something that also needs to be highlighted.
And I think it's interesting, Colin Lago also said that most of his research has been done in America.
Yes.
And it would be interesting to see what that research would be like if it was done over here, whether there was a difference or not a difference. But a lot of it has been done elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I just sort of maybe in concluding on your research, I know we've been looking at perhaps what issues, you know, how we might address some of these issues in training. But I wonder if, in a very succinct way, if there was 2 or 3 main themes or things that we could do in training to help Black and Asian trainees to?
For me, the main thing that stands out is there needs to be a safe place for Black and Asian trainees to be able to explore their identity. I mean, I know we've spoke about it briefly, but I think that stands out for me. There needs to be that safe place in training for them to be able to explore their identity and also, you know, for them to, I suppose, for them to sort of be made aware of what things they may face when they go out there as counsellors. You know, I mean, you know, with anybody really, I mean, you know, you are going to face different experiences, but I guess being Black, being Asian, you know, working, you know, the fact that there is racism out there, working with white clients, there could be that, you know, you could come across this or you could come across that. And I think it's just that preparation as well as them being able to explore their identity, knowing what's coming from them, what's coming from the client, you know, just being able to do that within a safe place where everybody feels that, you know, they can do it. And I think it's helpful as well for the white trainees to be able to hear, you know, some of the stuff that perhaps would come from the Black trainees. You know, and it's helpful for them to hear that, and it's helpful for the white clients for when they work with potential Black or Asian clients as well. So I think that's the most important thing for me.
I think I might sort of push that a little bit further and say that what comes out very clearly is having this space to reflect on identity and difference, and that in training it would be good if we could find ways of creating environments where all trainees could think about identity and difference. And I would kind of widen that, not in any way to minimise the important work that Bev's been doing, but to extend that to other issues of difference. So, you know, what beliefs do people hold consciously, unconsciously about women or people with disabilities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people, and to have a space where those can be really allowed to come to the surface and processed in a non-condemnatory way, because I think there is this fear in training where issues of diversity are concerned that people will be seen to be discriminatory in their language or their beliefs, and yet everybody grows up with imbibed beliefs because we live in a society that's discriminated against all the groups of the Equality Act. And so to create a safe enough environment for all of that to be discussed, which would incorporate how do Black counsellors feel about their identity with white clients, how do white counsellors feel about their identity with Black clients, and hopefully in a kind of more thematic way could incorporate lots of other issues of difference. I think that's quite a big ask to create that, but I think it does a disservice for our students to teach them from textbooks without allowing them space for reflection as well.
And one of the central tenets is being able to work with diversity in every client is different anyway.
Absolutely.
But I think there's always something, I just wonder if what you're saying, there's always allowing there to be no discrimination about your own discriminations or other people's discriminations in sort of a bizarre way. You know, allowing people just to be open about, actually there is something here that I'm not sure what that's about, but this is here, and where's that come from? And I think you're also saying looking at our own history and maybe cultural history as well, and identity, and how that impacts on how I view myself and how I view myself in relation to others and how others may relate to me, either consciously or unconsciously.
And a lack of doing that leaves counsellors, like the counsellors in your research, unprepared. I mean, it's going to be a journey and a process, but unprepared with the wherewithal really to begin to discuss that. And I think, for me, broadening it out into lots of issues of difference enables us to address intersectionality, so not to see people in binary functions of either black or white or gay or straight or able-bodied disabled, but to see people as a mixture of things, because that then allows us the ability to work with ourselves as complex beings as therapists, but also our clients who come with sometimes quite complex intersections of identity. So I think your work has really highlighted something in the field of the Black and Asian counsellor and the white client, but I think it also helps us to think more broadly about training around issues of difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. And I think it's also important. What comes out for me is also the importance of research, and I wonder if there's something, what your thoughts are on how important research is.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, when I was doing doing this research, and I was looking at research that had been done prior to mine, there was just nothing there at all. And I mean, all the research that had been done involving a black counsellor were all American. There was nothing British at all. And I think the only one I found was a Canadian study that had been done, and then everything else was American. But I think it is important, and it is an important area, and I do hope that there is more research done into it in the future to enable institutions then to be able to have, something there, some guidance in moving forward with this area.
And I think, one of the key things of research is it helps us to learn what we don't know. It helps us to ask questions with an open mind, and then to be surprised. I've been very surprised by the results that Beverley got. And that then becomes a springboard for discussion and learning in group training that we wouldn't be having if the research hadn't taken place.
Like we wouldn't be having this discussion now if this research hadn't taken place. And I wonder, because you're saying that this is very new research over here, where you might see this research project maybe going, if it was possible to take it further.
Well, I mean, I know there are being books, there's a lady, Aisha Mackenzie Binger, who's written a book now on racism in counselling practice. So I know she's doing a lot of work in that area. And I know there are other students doing research, in this area as well. And hopefully, I'd like to do some more on it as well. So I think, there are steps being taken. I think, we will hear a lot more about this subject in the future. Definitely.
So, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for the research that you have done.
Thank you.